What's up, YouTube? Today I've got another React mid-level developer challenge for you. I can't wait to share it. It's going to be about creating a sign-in screen, but also having the ability to change from sign in to sign up. So without further ado, let's get into it. Great, so we're gonna need three things for today. First, you're gonna need VS Code. Second, you're gonna need to globally install Dart SaaS, or install it however you want. I will paste the link to that below. Then the third thing, you're gonna wanna npx, create React app, call it something, get it installed, and then join me in a second. But if you haven't already, hit the subscribe video. If you like this at the end, give it a thumbs up. Let's jump into things. Cool. All right. So this is what you should be seeing when you CD into your project and then you open VS Code. We have just a regular React app here, right? So the challenge today is to create a sign-in page. We're not going to do any routing or anything. We're just simply going to create a sign-in component. But when you click sign up, the component is going to change from the inputs for signing in to the inputs for signing up. And then there's going to be an option to click, oh, if you already have an account, sign in, and it's going to revert it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is remove the header, get rid of that, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to open up a terminal. I'm going to get everything inside app.css. I'm going to rename this to app.scss. I'm going to save that there in my side terminal. I'm going to open up another one, do sass -- watch source -- no source map. And then what that's going to do is that will watch our entire source file for any files that are created in Sass. And then it's going to instantly watch for any changes and then output all the changes to the app.css. So we've got that there. Boom. Back to here, we're going to keep that app.css, delete everything there, and hit save. Boom to go. We're going to do npm run start. Whoops, wrong command. npm run start. This is going to get the React scripts building and going. And it's going to start the development server. In a new window, it's going to boot up and it's going to show us a blank page. This is exactly what we want. All right, so if you haven't guessed it already, I'm going to go a little bit fast today because I want to show you the most amount of value in the shortest amount of time. So we're just going to keep driving, keep digging in. So first what we're going to do is we're going to rename this to sign in _ container. All right. And so then our app.scss, we are going to create a parent class called sign in. And then we're going to do and _ container. We're going to display grid. We're going to have a height of 100 view height. And then we're going to have a grid template area. This is advanced CSS right now. So explain this in a second. Boom. Okay. So grid template areas, we're essentially defining a grid here. Okay, we got 5 on top, 5 in the middle, 5 on bottom, and sign in is the area we are calling the spot where we want our sign in to be. So why don't we do this? Underneath it, we'll just preemptively create a class. We'll call it grid area, sign in, give it a border of 2 pixels, solid black. We'll give it a height, 500 pixels, width, 400 pixels, and inside we're gonna want another display grid, and I'll show you why once we get there, but then we're gonna justify self center. So we're gonna hit save. We're gonna go in here. We're gonna do div class name equals sign in area. Save. That's going to update in our React.js. Bada bada boom. Signing in area. Oh, that is because it created signing in. There we go. And so now this is what you should see as well. Perfect. So this gives us a really solid starting point. But now what we're going to do is we're going to put stuff inside the app.css. So we're going to want to wrap everything in a form element. Inside the form, we're going to want to have on submit. We're going to call a function inside called handle on submit. And then we're also going to call it a class name of sign in area dash container. Perfect. Handle on submit is not defined, so why don't we go ahead and just define that real quick. We're also going to change this to a functional component. So, boom, we literally just changed it to a functional component. I like the const better than just function app. Some people will just do the function app or whatever your component name is. I prefer defining it in a const. Okay, so now we are going to define const handle on submit. You saw how fast I did that. Sorry, when you code for a living, you get really fast at typing. So we're going to have an event passed in, and then essentially we're just going to log it. That's going to be the easiest way to get through things today, because we're just doing this as a coding challenge. Bada boom, and then we want event dot prevent default. And the reason why we want event dot prevent default is because you're gonna have to Google it for a better answer, but essentially preventing the default will prevent the data from changing until something new happens. If we don't have, pardon me, if we don't have prevent default there, the data will display and then it'll change right away. Google it for a better answer than that, but that's why we're putting that there. Inside our form, let's put a few inputs. Let's just get the sign in happening. So we're gonna do a div. Inside is gonna be a label. We're gonna call that username, and then we're going to have an input. And the input is gonna have a name of username. It's going to have a placeholder, and the placeholder is going to be username. And then we're going to have an on-click event. Inside, we're going to call, or not on-click, my apologies. It's going to be on change. And then we're going to do here, bada boom, actually we're going to call it event. We're going to have handle on change. And then we're going to pass the event there. We'll make sure that it has a closing tag. We had an extra curly bracket there. Boom. We're going to highlight this. Shift, if you're on a Windows computer, Shift Alt down arrow to copy it down. Also, if you're on a Windows computer, you can hit Control D. And now we're going to highlight all the usernames, and we're going to change it to password, uppercase P there. Inside label, we're going to do HTML4, and the username is going to be for username, and the label for password HTML4 equals, boom, password. Great. And we do this just to help accessibility. That's a whole nother road, but accessibility is very important. Don't ever forget about that. Next, we're going to create another div. And then this here is where we're going to have our buttons. So we're going to have button 1. We're going to call it sign in. And then we're going to have another div. where we're gonna have a p tag and we're gonna say don't have an account. And we're gonna create another button, and then it's gonna do sign up. Perfect. We're gonna hit save. We have to define handle on change real quick. So let's do that. We are going to need to get a const handle on change. And for now, we're just going to do a console log of change. Pass event in there, but I just want to get this up so you can see our basic layout. We got username, password, sign in, sign up, don't have an account. Now what we want to do is, there we go. We want to be able to start storing values, okay? So in a functional component, we are gonna create a variable called user info, and we're gonna set it to use state. So const user info, and then we're gonna set user info equals use state. We're gonna have it be empty, but then we are going to import use state. I love VS Code. Did you see that? All I did is just hit enter when it recommended it, and it popped right up there. Love it, love it. All right, so when we go to our input, we have these handle on change events. Essentially, that is going to handle on each keystroke the change to the value inside the input field. And what we want to do is we want to store that value inside use state. So this is going to be some pretty advanced stuff, but very good for you to know if you don't already. We're going to destructure event, and we're going to destructure name and value, pardon me, equals event.target. Okay, so destructuring is essentially the same thing of saying const name equals event.target.name. Okay, this below does the exact same thing, except we can define multiple consts or variables in just one line. So now that we're going to do that, then we're going to set user info. And then we're going to spread it out. And then we're going to name value. Boom. Okay, so explain this real quick. We are calling the set user info function to set the user info variable inside use state. Again, I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but you get the gist of it. The first thing we want to do is if there's any variables already defined in use state, we want to make sure that those are kept, which is why we are using the spread operator and then spreading everything already stored inside user info out. Then anything new, we are going to change or add here. Anything new or anything that we need to change. So if there was already variables defined, those variables will be updated on change with the input component. One of the easiest ways that we can actually see this change happening is inside our handle on submit. So why don't we do, we'll do brackets, user info dot username, and then we will do $ brackets user info dot password. So these, if we go over to our window here, we're gonna right click the inspect tool. I'll bring that up to the side. We'll do username Kev, and password is going to be 123. And if we click sign in, we can see name submitted Kev123. So our variables are being stored. We have information being stored and submitted. This is perfect. The functionality is pretty much there. Now what we need to do is clean it up. With cleaning it up, we also need to construct the sign up page. So let's do both of those here. We're going to define another use state. We're going to do const is sign in set is sign in equals use state, and we're going to have the default set to true. So whenever a person comes to our page, they're going to come to the landing page. The default thing that they're going to get shown is, hey, you must already have an account, sign in. And then we are going to write a handler, handle sign in I don't know, for lack of better terms, we're going to pass in sign in bool, and then we're going to set is sign in with the sign in bool. Perfect. So then if we scroll down and we come here to our buttons, first we should set this button to a submit. So we want to have the sign in button for the sign in page have type equals submit. And then the sign up button will have a on click, and it is going to call handle sign in. We're going to pass for this page, we're going to pass the Boolean true. Perfect. So if they don't already have an account, they are, oh, sorry, we want to actually set it to false. If they don't already have an account, then is sign in is going to be set to false. And when that's set to false, we are going to then show the user the sign up input fields. And that button is going to have it reversed. So in that sign up input fields, this is going to be called sign up. This is going to be called sign in. This is going to be set to true. And this is going to say already have an account instead of don't have an account. This is where React starts to get really fun, is because we can actually break things down into nice, organized way to separate code, import code, and make sure future developers understand what's been going on. So in our source folder, we're going to right click that. We're going to click new folder, and we're going to call it sign in options. Okay, inside there, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it sign in inputs.js. We're going to create another one called sign up inputs.js. Okay, sign in inputs, sign up inputs. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and essentially cut everything in between the form. I'm going to hit Control X if you're on a Windows, Command X if you're on a Mac. And for right now, we're going to start with the sign in input. So we're going to call it const, capital S, sign in inputs. We're going to return parentheses, enter. We're going to create a React fragment, but this is the fancy way to do it. You don't actually need to type in React fragments as long as you're using the most up-to-date version of React, which you should if you did npx create React app. And then we paste our sign in inputs into there. Now we want to export this. So export default sign in inputs. That element is now, or that component is now created. And then in our app.js, we can simply import it here. But we need to pass a couple things to it. We need to pass the handle on change function in, which we do that. We can also destructure the props inside this area here. So typically, when you're more of a junior dev, you'll just pass props. Okay, but with modern day React, we can actually just define things inside this field. So handle sign in, handle on change, and then we're going to want a handle on submit, but we'll just leave that for right now. So we hit save, bada boom, we're going to hit enter. Handle on change equals handle on change. Handle sign in equals handle sign in, Control S to save. And this should not throw any errors. And we can see, perfect. No errors have been thrown. Even if we hit the refresh button, which is something you should do. You should always hit refresh, especially to clear out any stored values. Can still see no errors. We'll do Kev, 1, 2, 3, sign in. We still get the same output. This is really good. So we have that separated out into its own component. But what we need is to create, hey, if is sign in is true, show them this page. If it's false, show them this page. So what that's going to look like is we are actually going to cut this and we're going to create another const. We're going to call it return inputs. Okay, so if is sign in, we're going to return, not that, pardon me, paste that in, we're going to return this. And if not is sign in, lowercase I, then we're going to return sign up inputs, which we have to create right now. So in doing so, we're going to hit, we're going to go into our sign in inputs.js. We're going to hit Control A, copy that, bring it on over here into our sign up inputs and paste it. We're going to hit Control, we're going to highlight sign in inputs, Control D to get to the bottom one. Now we can edit both of them at the same time. Call it sign up inputs. You see both of them are now edited. We're going to change this to sign up. We're going to change this word to already. We're going to change this to sign in. Change this to true. And then we're going to change these fields. So to do this fast, highlight one username, Control D, highlights all the rest of them. Now we're going to type in first name, and then we're going to edit this, just this first name to first name. Do the same thing with password here. We're going to call it last name. Perfect. And we're going to highlight this one, Shift Alt down arrow. We're going to call it email, but we're going to highlight all of them. We're going to call this email, bada boom. We're going to hit save. And we're going to do something funky here. We're going to cut this. So in lieu of it, we're going to type in children. And we're also going to pass in children up here. And we're going to get rid of handle sign in because that's coming along with us with the buttons. But why we're doing this is because there is something that I described in my last video called wet code, which is write everything twice, and dry code, which is don't repeat yourself. We are aiming to be really experienced developers, so we don't want to repeat ourselves, right? We want to write everything once and not twice. So because of that, we are going to do the same thing here. This we can just delete. Children, remove that one. Children, hit save. And we're going to copy this up as well. Sign in inputs. Boom. Oops. There we go. So it did throw an error. Oh, it's because, there we go. I just had to make sure that I need to import sign up inputs. There we go. So now if we go back, let's refresh. Perfect. This makes sense because we did not actually yet import return inputs into our return statement. So let's go do that here quick. In our return, we simply need to do a curly bracket, return inputs, make it a function, hit save, and now it's here. So if we click sign up, oh, I think I got the buttons backwards. Oh, let's fix that real quick. And you might have already caught that. If you did, good job. But because we just copy and pasted from there, we need to hit sign in. Don't have an account. False. Change that to sign up. Boom. Here we go. So sign up changes to first name, last name, email, and then sign in changes it back to username, password. Sign up, sign in, sign up, sign in, sign up, sign in. So you're welcome to stop here if you don't want to pay attention to how to style things. I highly recommend you do, because I believe any front-end developer or full-stack developer should know advanced CSS and doing grid setups. We're going to dig into that now, though, so I hope you stick around. So now we're going to start styling things. We're going to go over here to our code, sign in inputs. We're going to have a class name for this one, and it's going to be called sign in __ input dash container. And we're going to actually copy this, replace this div with that, and then this div we're going to call class name equals sign in __ button dash container. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing here. So we're actually just going to copy that for these divs for the first three. Control D, Control D, Control paste. And then we're going to copy this button container div. Bada boom. Now we're going to go back to our app.js, and we are going to call this div, we're going to have it a class name. We're going to have it called sign in, sign up button container. And we're just going to keep that the same for down here. Bada boom. But we all are going to call this class name. Oh, sign in button. We're going to copy that and paste that up there for this one as well. Sign in button. Perfect. Cool. Now we got our class names displayed. So we already have container. We already have area. Now we're going to do area container, which, did we define that yet? I don't know if we did. Let's see. We did. Perfect. Awesome. So ampersand __ area, which technically we can do underneath here, and dash container. So if you look, sign in _ area dash container. This is the beauty of SCSS. You guys need to learn this if you're not already. It makes life so much simpler. So like as an example, let's just put something in here real quick. Display grid. We're gonna hit save. Now you can see this compiled it to our app.css. this is what it's outputting. So you could do it like this with CSS, it's fine. But again, if you want to be an advanced mid to senior level developer, you need to know how to do this, because this is a lot more intuitive. All these class names go underneath this class name. But then you can see this is a lot of repeat yourself, right? Sign in, sign in, sign in, right? We don't want to do that. We want to dry code. So container, we're going to have display grid. We're going to have GTR, grid template rows. It's the thing that I like about VS Code is you can like tab down and just enter into things. We're going to hit repeat, 3, min max. We're going to have each one be 80 pixels and then min content. Okay. So what is this? This is our form. Okay. And our form is going to contain essentially a few div elements, right? We're having a div and a div and a div. Now in this one, we're gonna have a few more. That's fine, don't worry about it. We're gonna tackle that as well. Technically, we could actually just do auto fit, and that would just auto fit everything. So if we go to our thing here, sign up, sign in, sign up, sign in. We don't have to have a separate grid template row for something that has 3 divs instead of 2. So we're actually gonna use that. Bada boom. We're going to align self center, okay? And you're about to see what that does. That aligns our form, our sign in area, to just have everything be a little bit more centered, right? So here's our form, and now it's centered. And if you click these things in the grid terminal, you can see just some nice stuff. If we highlight that one, we can see all the other grids that we made by setting that grid template area. I'll de-highlight those. So now what we're gonna do, back to our code, we are going to style our input containers. Okay, and those input containers are these. Anything that has a label and an input. We're going to display grid. So some of you might be asking, hey Kev, you use grid a lot. Why don't you use Flexbox? My personal answer is I like the amount of control I have with grid. It's very intuitive. With Flexbox, you have to do like flex, or display flex, then you have to define a flex direction, and then you have to deal with, okay, it needs to be flex, blah, 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 flex. Grid, when you have a grid, everything just seems to make more sense. I can imagine things in a grid layout, and then the grid has columns that go left to right, and it has rows that go top to bottom. In Flexbox, you have to define flex direction column, flex direction row. Grid, you don't have to define that. It's just, this is how it is. Sorry, tangent. But we're gonna do another GTR, rows, we're gonna do an auto, and then we're gonna do a width of 250 pixels. And then we're gonna justify self center. Okay, we're gonna save that. And then now, refresh, bada boom, perfect. Nothing really changed just yet, but it's about to get pretty fun here. So I had to ask myself, why did nothing change yet? I wanted to make sure I spelled that right? I was spelling this right, sure, and then I hovered over it. We are in sign in underscore area underscore input container. So, simple answer is Alt down arrow key to bring us outside of that, and now it's going to be how we want it, and now our code looks different. Yeah, there we go. That's exactly what we were looking for. Perfect. So we can see a little funky stuff's going on here. These are still off to the side. Let's go ahead and just get this cleaned up a little bit more. So inside our input container, we want to define some rules for labels. Now, because this is just a coding challenge, we're not adding a class name to all the labels, okay? We're just going to target the label element itself. When you are in a working code environment, you do not want to take that approach because it can become very unexpected. You always want to define things rather than by the elements. You want to call it label or I don't know, dot input container label, something, okay? So that way you can see inside the input container any labels that have the class this. But for now, just for our sake, we want to get through it. So we are going to align self-centered, and we are going to target the input fields. We're gonna have a height of 30 pixels. Let's see what that did. Sweet. So now we can see these both are the same size, and that makes a lot of difference, right? They weren't the same size earlier. Awesome. Now let's style the button containers. We are going to we're gonna go outside the input container, we're gonna and button container. Let's add padding to the top of it. We'll do 20 pixels. We're gonna display grid. Yeah. We're gonna have grid template rows, but we're gonna do something different this time. We're gonna do one FR, okay? Google what FR means. Essentially, it breaks up the container into equal parts. So 1FR and 1FR is 50%, 50%. 1FR, 1FR, 1FR is 30, 30, 30, right? Or 33, 30, yeah, you get it. Google it, but we're gonna add a gap of 20 pixels between elements. And then we're gonna justify self-center and then align items center. Hit save. And now we can see that it's centered. Sign in has a cool stretchy little feel to it. Sign up is down here as well. Finally, what we're gonna do is we're gonna style these buttons, okay? So it has base, without us styling the buttons, they have a browser specific styling. So when you hover over, it has browser specific hover. It has a browser border, it has browser colors, right? We are gonna make it custom. We're gonna do some fun little cool stuff here. So, button. We're gonna do width of 100%, okay? Let's just see what that does. Perfect, same. Did it refresh? I think so, yeah, it did, okay, cool. Let's make sure that our buttons have a sign-in of button, which is good, but this one doesn't. We want to make sure that one gets styled too. So let's go ahead and just copy this down here inside that button as well. Perfect. Now both buttons should be similar in size. Great. All right, now what? Let's add a height. Height of 30 pixels. We're gonna do a border of none, okay? And you'll see real quick what that looks like. We can now see before it had that black border around it, now it doesn't have a border around it. You can also see, because we're custom styling it, that the cursor isn't changing and that there's no hover effects. That's okay. We are going to, while we're doing border, we're gonna do a B radius. We're gonna do 5 pixels. And then we're gonna do a background color of blue. And in VS Code, something nice that you can do is you can hover over that. And then in here, we can drag this thing around and have it do different colors. So now it just changed it to 88, 88, 255. And if we hit save, this is the color of our buttons now. Pretty cool. We're gonna have the text be a color of white. So now you can see if we save that quick, this text is color of white, but they're lowercase right now, right? Let's do something here. If we hit TT, it chooses text transform, and we're gonna do capitalize. And now you can see the first letter of each word is now capitalized. That's another beautiful thing of CSS is you don't always have to have things done in JavaScript. Matter of fact, you don't want to have specific things be capitalized and non-capitalized in JavaScript sometimes, because if data is passed that way, the code on the back end needs to be able to parse it, which generally should be done anyways, but it's best most times to not have things have different casing. Let's have a font weight of bold. Let's have our cursor be pointer. Let's see what that does now. Perfect, font weight is bold, and now if we hover over it, our cursor changes. But we're gonna do one last thing. We're gonna add a box shadow, okay? And the box shadow is going to give this button a little bit of depth. So our box shadow is going to be RGBA. We're gonna have 0, 0, 0, and 0.19. This is essentially saying the RGBA is going to be black with 19 opacity. And then this is the color of the box shadow. And then now we're gonna define the location of it. We're gonna do, and I honestly just found a cool website that does this. I'll show that over here to you guys. It was called getcssscan.com/CSS-box shadow examples, right? So when you click on one, it just copies it right to your clipboard and you can paste it on in. But feel free to play around with that. You might find a better box shadow than I've got here. But let's keep typing this bad boy in because I want to show you the ones that I've entered. Comma to RGBA, another. We're gonna hit enter just to save us time, but we're gonna have opacity of 23, 0 pixels by 6 by 6. And that is going to add a really cool box shadow for us. Look at that. Now we got a nice, the buttons stand out. They're a little bit 3D. We can do something even more with them if we wanted. Like let's say we did, you can do a hover effect. You can do and hover, and then we'll do background color be red. But then up here, we're going to want a transition, and we're gonna do we're gonna do 0.2 seconds, and we're gonna ease. So now when we hover over it, it has a nice little ease there. But yeah, this is it, guys. This is how you can finish the coding challenge. Everything's here. Let's just make sure everything still works. So I'm gonna bring this to the side. We'll do Kev, password is 123. You can either hit enter. Let me get the console over here. You can hit enter because on Form Submit will recognize the enter key press, or you can also press sign in. And we can see here by doing that, this console log was triggered twice and you have officially passed the coding challenge. Hey, I hope that was awesome for you as much as it was for me. I really enjoy creating these things because the front end makes it so exciting, at least for me. I've got the creative side of the brain. I get to create, I get to have logic, I get to make things appear, switch around, color stuff. It's amazing. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, leave a comment if you got any thoughts or questions on anything. I appreciate you guys sticking around, and until next time, take care.